My name is Logan Manford, founder of BLoFISH Clothing. We are a clothing company known not only for our amazing clothing, but also for our even more amazing message, all for all. This is not your normal podcast. No celebrities, sports, or money. This podcast, the Speakeasy, has been created for the other stories, the ones you may not want to hear. These words are the stories of your neighbors, of the people you pass every day on the street, from the homeless to sexual assault survivors, to those being disowned for their sexuality. It is the sound of our community, and we hope you listen with open ears and an open heart. Friends, welcome back to the Speakeasy. Today we have a pretty awesome guest. I've been friends with Avalon for quite some time. She's the founder of Derby City Consent. She's also done some other pretty cool things around town that we'll talk about a little bit later. How are you, Avalon?
Hi, I'm good. How's it going?
Pretty good today. It's a little rainy outside and we're in the store, so if you hear a little ding, that means we're hopefully selling some BLoFISH stuff. The charity of the month, just to remind you all, is the United Way. Feel free, if you have any charities that you like, to send them our way at BLoFISH Clothing on Instagram or blofishclothing@gmail.com. Are you from Louisville, Avalon?
I am. I was born and raised here. Oklahoma.
Oklahoma? One of the reasons we have Avalon on the podcast, similar to Alex, is she's a sexual assault survivor. And Avalon's the main reason BLoFISH got involved so passionately about sexual assault. She basically sent a letter to us one day saying she had an idea for a really amazing project and she needed some sponsors. So if you want, Avalon, we'll just jump right into it.
Alright. So, mine really starts, I didn't go to a very good school, just brought up pretty poor, like there wasn't a lot of education around that. But I had been dancing for a really long time, and I did Irish dancing, and I had made it my goal that I was going to be professional. So I finally got out of a really toxic relationship and worked on myself, like trained as hard as I could, trained by myself, made audition tapes, did headshots, and I sent out to shows, and the first 2 shows that I sent out to, I got in. And that's
amazing.
It was pretty awesome. I
don't know if y'all have ever seen
astounded.
It, but it's pretty cool. Look up some YouTube videos because it's a pretty cool, hard thing.
Yeah, it took years and years of practice. I started when I was 8. I started going on tour when I was 24, and that's actually where I met my rapist, was in Ireland. I met him when the first show that I was doing was coming to an end, and found out that we were going to be touring in the next show together. So it really came down to being on tour, which was in China, by the way, so I was completely on the other side of the planet.
So how old were you when basically you got into this group of professional dancing?
I was 24. It all happened when I was 24, yeah. Which is amazing now that I think back, that I had made it through college without any, you know what I mean, any issues, but...
You deal with a lot of people, I guess a lot more people are a little bit younger that you talk to a lot.
I do. There's a lot of younger people, and there's not so much older people, but I'd say middle-aged that have come forward since then.
Yeah.
But with my assault, it was in China, so my experience is pretty different than those that I try to help here locally. I believe that I was roofied. I made it back to my hotel room with my roommate. My roommate didn't care that I was throwing up and couldn't stand up. So he actually came into my room and drugged me. I don't even know how I got in the hallway into the elevator, and I passed out, and I woke up when he threw me on the bed and took off my pants. And that, people always tell me that's probably, oh, isn't that better because you don't remember it? Which is like, do you not understand how disgusting that sounds?
Yeah, that's...
There's nothing that, pain is pain. Nothing is going to make your experience more or less painful, whatever extremity that you've experienced of assault. I was fading in and out, so it made it harder for me because I thought that if I wasn't roofied or whatever had happened to me, that I could have fought back because I tried. But when you're blacking out, there's not much you can do.
Yeah.
So the last thing I remember about the assault was that I was crying and telling him that I wasn't a number. And he told me to shut up and go to sleep. And he pushed me off and lit a cigarette, and I was out. The next morning I woke up, still in the same hotel room. Thought I was going to get sick, went to the bathroom, and there was blood on the toilet paper. And I was like, what happened?
Oh my God.
Yeah. So, like, I was in complete shock. I didn't know what to do. I was in China. Like, I don't speak Mandarin, so there's not a lot of...
Yeah, that's...
I didn't,
unreal.
like, it's hard enough being in the States and finding resources to help you, but being overseas is just a nightmare.
And I can't imagine you're with that big of a group of people. I mean, it had to be like, I don't know how else to describe it, but I mean, a small group. How many of you were there over there?
It was less than 20.
That's wild.
I didn't have any shoes on. I didn't have my hotel key. I had to hold on to the walls while trying to figure out where the elevator was, what floor I was on. I didn't know where I was at.
Wait, so all y'all were in the same hotel?
Yeah, everybody was in the same hotel. So I finally made it back to my room, got a housekeeper to let me in because I didn't have a key, and just immediately got in the shower and thought that I was going to throw up. Like, I just stood there. My roommate had gone down to breakfast. She really didn't care that I still wasn't back in the morning.
I mean, it had to be almost like surreal experience. Like,
I was in complete shock.
Yeah.
And I still had to continue touring and performing with him for 2 more weeks before the tour was over. So it was really just, like, when they say fight or flight, like, I don't know what I considered that, because it was like I just sunk into myself just to survive.
Yeah. So, obviously there's just no words to describe it. So you were over there for 2 more weeks after this incident. Did you tell anybody, or did you...
My roommate, who was not American, there was a few Americans, the majority was Irish, there was a couple of British, and then New Zealand, so that was like the group that was the troupe.
So, basically, there were only a couple of people from here, from your group, I guess, here in Louisville.
Well, not even from Louisville. They were
really?
from Ohio and New York.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
So, we're from all over the place. But, yeah, my roommate, she kind of asked in a way of, like, it's still assault when you're drunk. And I was like, well, that makes sense. And then she never said anything else.
Oh, really?
So she pretty much knew. And I ended up, about a year later, contacting the tour manager and the choreographer twice, and they ignored me. Because I know that if he hasn't already done it again, he will. That's just his personality.
So I want to talk about this a little bit later, but we'll just jump into it now. I mean, was he like a really good dancer, position of like power, or was he just...
Yeah, he was lead.
He was lead, so...
Which is why he had a separate room. Everybody else had roommates except for the leads.
So not to make an analogy to stuff, but I mean, you turn on the TV all the time, and whether it's a high-profile attorney, businessman, athletes, a lot of times these get swept under the rug. We've talked about it a lot, and it's one reason I'm so passionate about it and why we're using BLoFISH as a brand to bring awareness to things like this is because a lot of times these people in positions of power are able to sweep these kinds of things under the rug, and it's not okay. And one of the reasons I like having you here is because, I mean, obviously it's emotional and tough for you to talk about this.
It's okay.
But your story is bringing awareness and giving power to those people who are going after like you said, the guy might do it again. I mean,
yeah.
And the more we can bring awareness to these types of things and understand that a lot of times it is the people in position of power who are doing these types of things that do get away with it. Not just people from lower class backgrounds who are getting convicted, but this is happening everywhere throughout the United States and obviously the world, but in the U.S., it's such a more prominent problem that it's baffling, to be honest with you. I don't really know the other words to describe it. But back to your story. So basically you were ignored for a whole year trying to tell people about this?
After I got home, it was in the middle of winter, so it was hard for me to finally go and see a doctor, and I didn't even know where to go. So I ended up just finding a random OBGYN and just going in and just completely breaking down, and I thought I was pregnant for 3 months.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The day before I was supposed to have an ultrasound, I started my period, and it was so relieving. And I've met survivors who it's been such a traumatic experience for them that they have gone years without having a cycle. So it definitely, when people refer to sexual assault or domestic violence or any kind of assault in that nature as kind of, well, it happened to you then, like, why aren't you happy now? Like, maybe you got your degree, maybe you started a family, which that's amazing. Why aren't you happy now? And it's not a trauma is trauma. Like I said, pain is pain. No matter how much or how little you've experienced, that feeling is valid. Yeah.
Just listen to you talk about it. Like I said, it's unreal. The 2 weeks, I guess we'll go back a little bit. The 2 weeks after it happened, when you were still on tour, I mean, we've talked about it before, that a lot of times, obviously you were overseas, so it was a little bit more difficult, but the feelings and emotions, I'm sure, were the same. I mean, were you just trying to fight it to be okay, I guess, just to sweep it under the rug and go back to normal? Because you've said before, like, if the rape kit's not done right away, then
yes,
it's basically done. So
yes,
and you mentioned to me a lot, like, these people, if they don't do it right away, because whatever emotions they're feeling.
Well, I think it's amazing for those who actually go through with the rape kit, because your body becomes a crime scene. So you've not only gone through this enormously traumatic event where you just retreat within yourself, or even sometimes it becomes an out-of-body experience. It's so painful, so shocking, like your body just can't handle it.
Yeah.
So for those people who have actually gone forward, who have called the police, who have gone to the hospital for their rape kits, your body's a crime scene, so they take your clothes, they examine all of you. I mean, you have been abused in the worst way imaginable, and they just go through again and have to cover all these points.
That's something like...
You don't even get to keep your clothes.
And people don't even... I mean, I wasn't even aware. I mean, I didn't even think about it. I knew it was... but you don't even think about the steps and what the person has to go through just for... I mean, that's the initial step. It's not even like that's down the road. That's... This incident happens, and then...
You can't go to the bathroom, you can't brush your hair, you can't change clothes, you cannot shower. It's essentially, in order to get the most evidence, you have to be from the incident directly to the hospital.
It's wild.
And a lot of times, like in my case, I was in such shock, like I didn't fully register what happened until I actually came home. Because being overseas, I was just... It was fight or flight, and I just fought through the 2 weeks and just did what I had to do to get home.
Being over there obviously puts you in a whole different situation than somebody...
It was crazy.
...was here. You get people coming to you, but often it's not the day after. It's months, years, weeks, years most of the time before people come forward and talk about the experiences that they had. Bringing awareness to this is awesome, but what are... in a horrifying incident like this happens, what are the steps that you can take, as hard as it may be that next day, fighting all those emotions, fighting everything? What should someone do?
Well, first of all, and most importantly, is that every survivor that I've ever spoken to feels guilt. They're ashamed. And I don't. I'll tell you all right now, I do not feel ashamed of my story. I'm comfortable talking about it because it was not my fault, and it's not your fault that someone either took advantage of you or hurt you, or you were just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Things like this happen, and it's happened for centuries, unfortunately. So first of all, don't ever think that you are alone in this, or that someone's not going to believe you. Well, if you're overseas, first of all, you would contact the American embassy, and they would take care of you from there. Since I was in China, I didn't know what to do. But if you're in the States, contact RAIN. It's the National Sexual Assault Hotline, and RAIN stands for Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network. Their phone number is 800-656-4673. It's 800-656-HOPE. And they can help you find local medical facilities, resources for healing and recovery, and like information on laws in your area. Like for different states, I think Kentucky, you have up to 5 years to report your assault. Yeah. But other states, it varies.
We'll try to put that in the description of the podcast too,
okay.
Just so people have that and they can refer to that too. Obviously, it's going to be different in different states, but
right.
Like we talked about previously, all these situations, there's going to be places to reach out and get help. The big thing and the reason this is so important with this situation is because of what we talked about. This rape kit has to be done almost immediately. Mm-hmm. I don't even want to say justice to be served, because it's not even justice, but for the evidence to be what it needs to be, it has to be done the next day. So obviously that's a great resource. Obviously calling the cops, I guess, is huge too.
The local rape crisis, you would want to contact your local rape crisis center. And if you honestly just put that in Google, it'll show up what the closest one is in your area. You just contact them, or you contact RAIN, and they can also help you find the crisis center in your area, or which hospital you would go to for a kit, because not all of them have them.
Time out, not all of
the hospitals have rape kits available.
So that's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
It is.
Is there no, like... That's crazy. How do you know... Like...
I'm pretty sure that U of L is the main hospital that does it here. Otherwise, that they might have to, I think it's the Center for Women and Families will drive a kit out or something like that.
As much money as we're spending on all this crazy stuff, and we can't even supply hospitals with rape kits. I don't know. And that's why we're doing this podcast, though. That's why you do what you do every single day, and why you're out talking about this, because there are small steps that we can take to help fix this problem. And the more people that are brought to justice for this, like I said, I don't even know if that's the right word, but the less people are going to do it. I mean, we just have to keep fighting, and any small step like that is something we need to do.
Talking about justice too, even if you do a kit, they might test it and nothing might come back. Just like how they had the backlogs. They had the thousands of backlogs here in Kentucky. That are being tested, and so far they have found at least one serial rapist in Louisville, just from the backlogs. So justice isn't just, I guess the word would be legal. Justice is really finding peace with yourself, accepting your story, accepting what happened, and that you're going to be okay. But with the kits, I still would encourage the kits, because even if something doesn't pop up in their system with your kit, maybe a month, it might be a year, might be 5 years, it happens to another woman or a man. And since they have that information already, it will be easier to prosecute them, since they already have your case on hand, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. The other thing we've talked about a lot, you and I, is the more people come forth and talk about this subject, the more likely, and share their story, the more likely when people are going to believe them, because you said shaming is a huge issue, which we can talk about that too. But the second thing is, I mean, you might not have the evidence, but at a certain point when 3, 4, 5, 6 people come forward and talk about the same individual, that in court becomes just as important, if not more, as a rape kit. So sharing your story is tough. Getting help is obviously tough. Talking about these is tough, but at the same time, it might save a life. I mean, literally save a life and prevent this same person from doing it over and over again, because all it takes is one conversation to connect the dots between one of these incidents and another and another, and before you know it, just like you're saying, your attacker has probably done it again, and you don't have any evidence, but 3 or 4 people come forward with the same story, then that in court is a lot more likely to hold up than just one person coming forward talking about it. So as hard as it is to talk about, as hard as it is to do it, that also could be a way for us to bring awareness and bring some of these people to the courtroom so they can get what they deserve, basically. From there, I mean, the incident obviously has had a huge impact on your life.
Yeah.
How have you taken the steps to talk about it, I guess? I mean, how have you gotten the courage? Is there anything you did? A lot of people struggle with this. You see it all the time where they'll say, yes, this has happened to me, but they struggle with talking about it and bringing awareness. Is there any advice you can give to these people to maybe get the strength like you did to be able to talk about this?
I think that is just part of rape culture, that people will shame the survivor. And I always use the term survivor. I never use the term victim, because you're still here. Some people don't make it out of their assaults alive. Some people take their life after the assault because they can't deal with the trauma. So it's mainly the shame, and for just rape culture makes you feel like it's your fault. What were you wearing? What were you drinking? Why were you by yourself? Why were you walking late at night?
And this is important, because not that I disagree with what you're saying right now, but it's such a huge problem, because I don't know how this has become ingrained into our society to where these are the questions that get asked right after, and it infuriates me. Not that it's easy, but there's a way to change those questions, and it starts with people talking about these situations, to where instead of one person coming forth saying that this happened, 2 people, 3 people, at a certain point those questions become flipped to who did this, why, where, let's get you help, as opposed to this is your fault. And we're definitely nowhere near this, but cultures can be changed. Culture changes all the time, and small steps toward changing rape culture is going to make a huge impact. But back to where you were, I'm sorry about basically rape culture.
Well, with that being said, first of all, you don't ask any of those questions, because that is incorrect and not the right way to go about talking to a survivor after this has happened. But I feel like a lot of that has stemmed from the justice system and the way that law enforcement is trained. They are not trained to, I guess, interview. They're trained to interrogate.
Okay.
So that's why they treat survivors as if they have done something wrong, because they haven't been trained in any other fashion.
Makes sense.
Police forces are recognizing that. I think the Attorney General office here in Kentucky is starting to set the motion for getting better training in that field. Like, in my experience, I called a year later just to say that I called, just to get it off my chest. And the officer immediately started questioning. Like, he said, well, are you sure? The guy that you said has done this, are you sure? It was like, I'm sure. Like, I'm pretty positive. And he began asking me all types of questions, like, well, where does he live? What's his birthday? And just questions like that. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't care.
Yeah.
And then he goes, well, those are some of the things that you're going to need to know if you want to press charges. And I was thinking, well, what if this was an incident where I didn't know?
Yeah.
Most rapes are someone that you know, is usually a friend, unfortunately. So that baffled me, that he had the audacity to even ask me those questions. But then the solution, he didn't even write a report. His solution was that I needed to do creative Googling to contact the Chinese consulate and form a case myself.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine him being in a tough position a year later, all this, but those definitely aren't the right questions to ask.
Completely inappropriate.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, that goes back, not that that's appropriate, but I mean, like you said, officers might not be trained to handle these situations the way they should be, and that's what they're there to help people. A lot of people become officers to help people, and if they're not trained on this, then it's not their fault, basically. I mean, we need more awareness to it, and that starts at the government level, basically.
Hello, Editing Cat here. Just wanted to pop in and say thank you so much for listening. And second thing is, the podcast you're listening to, we have actually decided to split into 2 parts. You just got done listening with part 1, and part 2 will be coming out shortly. So I hope you stick around for the second part of the conversation.